You're tuned in to Ask the Master Auto Technician. Car questions? Get answers right now. Call 850-763-0555.
James Auto Center, we fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to round two of our show, Ask the Master Auto Technician. I just had Larry Walters on here. I've got Stephen Lane calling all the way from Powder Springs, Georgia. He's a writer for Yahoo, Chicago Tribune, and he writes some very informative articles about used cars, purchasing used cars, and sometimes just talking about how people buy used cars. How are we doing this morning, Stephen?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You write some very good articles about things that no one ever thinks about. I never would have thought about that the color of a car, you have two or three cars, the color of a car can affect the price of a car. I didn't realize the color had any price on a used car, but apparently it does, and you wrote not extensively, a couple articles about that. What are some other things that affect the value of a used car when people go out and buy them?
Well, believe it or not, the most important value oftentimes is the seller.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Because the seller will dictate a value for the vehicle in terms of his perception. They believe that their car is worth, they bought it for retail and they want to try to sell it for retail.
Mm-hmm.
However, their version of retail may not actually be reflective of what the true reality is.
That's true. Yeah, their perception and reality are two separate things. Everybody wants that $30,000 car to be able to sell it for $25,000, but the reality is it doesn't go that much. So how do you figure out what a car's worth, or how do you get the seller to negotiate? How do you do this?
Well, the long and the short of it is some people try to look at it from other vehicles that are in the marketplace. And there's a little bit of a curse that comes with that, because if you have a very old car or a car with a lot of miles,
right,
oftentimes the people who are trying to sell the cars have a very high opinion of something that took them from Mercury to Pluto and back.
Ah, okay. Yeah, they have a lot of They're very sentimental value to it. I guess that's what it is. They put sentimental attachment to it, and it actually increases the price. Is that why the price is so high sometimes on used cars that people are trying to sell?
Yeah, that's a very big part of it. And the other part is most folks don't really try to discount as much as they should for the fact that a given vehicle has a defect that other people can't really easily fix. And that has other things related to it that are going to make it more expensive in the long run as well.
Okay. So what's the best, how should someone go about, say they see a car that's someone's trying to sell, and the price is over what it should be. How can they go about getting the price where it's more in line with what it should be, or should they just walk away from it?
I think that the best thing to do is to use a combination of three different valuation tools.
Okay.
What I try to do is I take the Edmunds value, that tends to be the average.
Okay, Edmunds.
Then I take the NADA value, that tends to be the high, and Kelley Blue Book tends to be the low.
Oh, I did not know
that. And I try to average out the three together, and that can get a better idea as to what the real market price is for a particular vehicle. The other side of it is for those who are selling vehicles that are worth $2,000 or less, a Chinese scooter is worth $1,000.
Okay.
On the other hand, a decent 10-year-old compact car in most parts of the country are worth around $3,000, maybe $3,500.
Right.
In between those points is the value of your car, typically.
Okay.
So I would ascertain in that perspective that condition, not in terms of your love for the vehicle, but the condition of the vehicle, its shape, very much in terms of its cosmetics, is going to have a big factor in what you value the vehicle for.
Okay.
But I would just use an average of a three, see what the marketplace says. If you don't hear calls after a few weeks, chances are you need to lower that price a bit.
Now, that's a good advice for not seeing calls. But you say you take Edmunds, and which is around the middle of the road, and you take Kelley Blue Book, which is the highest, and then you have my wife's give me hand signals. But anyway, Edmunds is in the middle.
He said that was the lowest.
Which one's the lowest? You had Edmunds, Kelley Blue Book, and NADA. Which one was the highest again? NADA was the highest. Kelley Blue Book.
KBB would be the lowest. NADA would be the highest. Edmunds tends to be in the middle.
Okay, so take those three right there and average them together, and you can figure out what the average is. Okay, that makes good sense. That makes very good sense. I never thought of doing that. I've always gone to Kelley Blue Book, but you say that's the lowest. And NADA is the highest, and all those can be found on the internet without any subscription. You can get an idea what your car is worth. So that's some really good tips on there. Now, what about, you say condition, cosmetic? Does the cosmetic appearance, a lot of times, is that indicative to the preventive maintenance on the car, or is sometimes that not the case?
Well, it is, but oftentimes people don't actually value it as much as they should.
Okay.
I have a vehicle right now that I'm selling for around $3,900, which is a Honda Civic, and the usual question you get with vehicles that are around 100, 150,000 is, has a maintenance been done? I said, yes, the maintenance has been done recently. Timing belt, water pump, tune up, everything that it needs.
Wow.
Well, they still want to get it for that same price as the one that hasn't been maintained. So, you can be less in the waiting period on that. In my world, it's easy. I just finance it. But in other worlds, you oftentimes have to deal with the fact that people don't want to pay for the care you gave the vehicle.
No, I guess they don't see the value in it. But if you do buy a car, say you buy a Honda that it needs to have a timing belt changed, by the time you do a timing belt, pay someone to put a timing belt, water pump, cam seals, crank seals, tensioners, maybe new valve cover gasket, and do a coolant exchange, you could have yourself a $1,200 bill very, very easily. And some people just don't see the value of doing that because I think some people think they can get a timing belt job done for $150. I do. I have some people that are shocked. You mean it costs more than $200 to get a timing belt? Yeah. Well, the guy down the street would do it for $200. I say, please go there. Because you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be very happy at all. That timing belt's going to break very, very soon, or something's going to develop a leak, and you'll be right back where you were again, maybe with more damage. So that's what you see as you need to put more value. I guess people need to put more value on preventive maintenance than they do put on preventive maintenance. And I guess the person selling it should be able to have some sort of documentation. My wife said documentation to prove it, to show the value. So just don't take someone's word for it. Show where that timing belt was changed, where it was done, what kind of warranties on it, because I know a lot of people put timing belts on and stuff just to sell the vehicle. They want to get rid of it, and they know the best way to get rid of it is to have the maintenance. And do you look for that when you go to buy a used vehicle? Yeah, I do, very much so. It does make my life a lot easier. Okay. So I really think that is pretty much your prime priority. Okay. Is to buy based on condition. Condition. So if someone someone recently paid $1,000 getting maintenance on it, I know you don't want to pay the full $1,000 back on top of what they're asking, but I know that it would make me, including yourself, give more than maybe $200 or $300 extra. I'd want to probably meet them somewhere in the middle if they just paid all that money, because it's going to save me some money, because I don't have to have that done. I've got the documentation on it, and because that is what I see wrong with most cars that people buy. They buy them with timing belts. They think everything's fine. It runs great. They leave it alone. Then all of a sudden it comes on a hook 6 months later with a broken timing belt and valves that are bent, and the car needs to be replaced now, because it's going to cost more to fix this used car than it would be just to go out and buy another one just like it. People I'm sure you've had the same problem happen to you, or you've seen the same thing when you've bought used cars that you thought were fine, and things happen. And that's and you finance it, so you get stuck with it sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not good either. So if people want to know more, we got about 4 minutes left. So when people are buying a used car, you look for maintenance, you look for cosmetic, and you look for making sure the tires are not too old. I have a rule of thumb that tires shouldn't be more than 5 years old on a car. A lot of people look at the tread and they say, oh, the tread looks good, but I've seen cars that have great looking tread, but the tires are 6 and 7 years old. It doesn't make them safe. So what's another piece of advice that maybe people can do before they sign their name on the dotted line to purchase this vehicle? What would you recommend they do?
What I would recommend them to do is 3 things. First of all, of course, take it to an independent mechanic and have it looked at for what the actual expenses are going to be to bring it back to day one condition.
All right.
Number 2, I would actually adjust my expectations a bit. A lot of people think, well, you're selling it for $4,000. It's going to cost $800 repairs. I'm going to pay you $3,200. The problem with that is, first of all, most folks don't want to take that much of a hit.
Right.
And the second is that when you're buying a car and you're getting all the maintenance done on it, you are buying a car that is more reflective of a clean condition vehicle. Not a good condition vehicle, a clean condition, because clean condition vehicle typically needs nothing.
Okay.
And cosmetics as the car gets older aren't really as important.
Okay.
So I would just my expectations a bit accordingly on that side too.
All right, so that makes good sense on that part right there. So we've got get a car looked at by independent, make sure your expectations aren't too much. Like we were talking about earlier, if someone spent $1,000 on maintenance, you don't want to take that, that price off on a car or add to a car that much, because it's very difficult to do, and have some sort of reality on what to expect, how to price your car, and do some investigation on what a car is worth by going to Edmunds, NADA, and Kelley Blue Book. Those are 3 good places to look. I never thought about going to all 3 of them and averaging them out. I've just gone to Kelley Blue Book, and that's usually the best one. That's the only one I go to, but you say that's the lowest one. So that's pretty good.
And now I have a question about Carfax. How reliable are Carfax reports as a buyer? For looking for
I think
information.
it's actually good for keeping people away from certain vehicles. In other words, 2 things. If the vehicle, of course, has been through a severe accident and you're concerned about the safety of a vehicle and that maybe it hasn't been repaired right, that's one possibility. But the bigger issue is having people lie to you. You'll have people all the time who will say, I've had this vehicle for 12 years, and if you look at the Carfax and you see it's been less than 6 months, you know that person is being a scam artist. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that goes around. A lot of people like to pass a word called hot potatoes, which are vehicles that have issues. They're burning them at the moment, which as soon as they give it to somebody else, it's going to be the same reality.
I didn't think about that. I guess used car salesmen aren't exactly the most scrupulous people in the world, so they tell people they've had a car for a long time, they've only had it a few months, and Carfax will show you the previous owners, and that's a very good idea. You can tell if the thing's been being passed around every 90 days at an auction, I guess. I didn't even think about that. That's a very good way to determine where they're coming from. But you got to be careful about those little old ladies that only drive their car to church on Wednesdays and Sundays too, because sometimes they may go 2-3 years before they get an oil change. After it takes them that long to get 3,000 miles on the car. And I go, woo, those cars can be they may look nice on the outside, but on the inside of those engines, they're all sludged up in a lot of cases. Hey, Stephen, thank you so much for being on here. You're a wealth of information. You really are. Look forward next week. What do you think you might want to talk about next week? I know we've talked a couple of times about looking for buying used cars. Next week, give me a surprise and give me an idea what you want to talk about, and we'll see what we can talk about it. Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan, sir. All right. This is James Morris along with Anna Marie Morris and Stephen Lang. We'll be talking to y'all tomorrow morning on Wednesday morning show of Ask the Master Auto Technician. Give us a call, 850-763-0555. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
James Auto Center, we fix it right.